I think that you can have your cake and eat it many times. You can serve the needs of the business and you can serve your personal aspirations, and that they both theoretically can be amplified at the same time.
Today I sat down with Kenneth Cole and documentary director Dori Berinstein as we discussed their upcoming documentary, A Man with Soul, The Impact of Kenneth Cole. So just tell us a little bit about kind of the genesis of this documentary. I understand it was not your idea, rather it was your story. So what was that process? What did you really want to tell the audience? And how did you convince Kenneth to go along with you?
I was already very familiar with Kenneth's work in social impact and also, of course, his incredible fashion legacy, but that authentic commitment to cause, as much as I knew, I had no idea how deep it was.
His commitment to AIDS was extraordinary, and speaking up and being at the forefront of one of the most important AIDS organizations was tough. I mean, there were people who didn't want to buy clothing from designers.
Obviously, social impact has been such a big part of your work and the way you brand everything. How were you thinking about balancing branding and social impact today?
Being in the fashion business, you're always wanting to connect with people in a meaningful way. Mm-hmm. And I learned early on that's very hard to do with heel heights and hem lengths, which change every 15 minutes. Mm-hmm. But if I could find a more meaningful way to connect to the customer, to put myself in their proverbial shoes that they would want to put themselves in mine, so to say, then that would be an optimal business model. And I realized that if I could marry philanthropy, social impact into the business, and I could not make it something we did, but make it part of who we were, then we could do it in a way more meaningful way. But also, I believe if you take certain business principles and infuse them into the philanthropy, they become so much more impactful with a very clear focus on leverage, on scale, and ultimately on impact. And you create something so much bigger than the sum of its parts, which typically doesn't happen in the not-for-profit space.
It is a very New York-based story, obviously. You're from the city. So I would love to hear both of you kind of speak to how New York has played an important role in this.
So New York is a cultural hub, and so much energy comes out of here. And it's very fast-paced and everything happens very quickly. And I've always believed that in all of the messaging, the goal is to say as much as you can in as few words as possible. I think it's inspiring and it's energizing. People ask me if I grew up here, and I'll often respond, no, but I intend to.
Kenneth has used New York as an incredible backdrop for his storytelling. You know, one of the things that really struck me is that Kenneth typically doesn't use, or very infrequently uses models. He uses human beings that have stories that are, authentic, amazing human beings.
What do you think are the most relevant takeaways? Because you talk about social impact, you talk about all these things that were relevant in the 80s, and what do you think is the takeaway for viewers?
I think that you can have your cake and eat it many times. You can serve the needs of the business and you can serve your personal aspirations, and that they both theoretically can be amplified at the same time if you do it thoughtfully.
Theoretically or actually?
I think actually. And I do think it's what everybody aspires to want to do, and we're inherently always frustrated because we're trying to balance. Success has a different interpretation to everybody. To be success personally and professionally, professionally you need to make personal compromises, and sometimes personally you got to make professional compromises. But I do think if you can marry them and layer in on top of that community engagement and social impact, that you can do all of them at the same time, and it can be ultimately as the most fulfilling, I think, equation that I know of anyway, or that I can imagine. And we're a better business today. People enjoy working here. Our retention is much higher than in most companies. And I do think because of not just what we do, but how we do it and why we do it. And I would encourage other companies to look at the same thing. And you go home at night and you feel much better about what you do.